Okay, let's move on to the next balance issue. This one is a meme, and therefore my favorite: heavy artillery. What do you guys think before I start my piece?
Ban
heat that-
heavy artillery completely. Remove
Yes.
it. The moment
Yes.
every second it is spent within the game is an affront to humanity.
Yes.
I do more or less
agree.
agree with that. Astolfo?
I do agree with it. I mean, I agree with it for different reasons, right? Like, there you can argue why it's overpowered and everything, but to me, it's one of those units where someone has to do almost nothing to have a huge impact. You know, we just talked about how it's like you have to do so much as a ranged unit to stay away from cavalry, to kill other priority targets. To do that as a melee unit, you have to do that too. You know, you got to know what to engage, when to engage. Do I have the cooldowns to engage? Am I in the right position to engage? Am I going to take a debuff from that forest? Am I not? Am I in mud? Am I, all these things. And then you have a guy sitting in the back of the map just top fragging by going hor 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 as he launches rocks.
Or right click goes brrr.
And then, on top of that, to make it worse, again, like this one, I think is where elephants need a buff in this very specific scenario, right? Why are onagers sniper rifles? Why are they hitting elephants at max range perfectly right on the forehead and dinking them for a fourth of their health?
You know why? Because right click.
Like,
We've gotten to the point in
onagers
artillery.
could barely hit walls back in the old days, right? Like, those things would just fly off into the city sometimes and take out a random house instead of the wall it's aiming at. And then in Total or Arena, you have an onager snipe a freaking elephant right on the forehead from max range.
Yep, and that was right after the elephants got introduced, just 1 or 2 patches later, which also occurred very fast. They added, I don't remember exactly, but they added a multiplier on damage. I think it was times 10, because the problem in air quotes, right? It was fine that way back then, at least. Because the rock had a preset damage, like let's say 400. 400 is still big enough to pretty much one-shot everybody, maybe apart from the healthiest, tankiest Roman heavy infantry, right? But apart from that, everybody who gets hit, well, maybe cavalry, right? Everybody else who gets hit by a rock dies instantly on the spot. There's no such thing as taking damage from artillery and then standing up and then being, I don't know, yellow or orange with your HP. You just fucking die if you get touched by that rock. And elephants, well, they're also taking only 400 damage, so they didn't really give a fuck. Because that damage in terms of other units was spread out on every model. So you hit 10 models, you hit 20 models, 30 models, and all of them die. All of them take that 400 damage. Elephants take 400 damage, they don't care. So they're like, well, okay, times 10.
I don't mind the damage, right? If the rock hits the elephant in the forehead, sure. But the fact that it's hitting the elephant in the forehead at max range is specific to elephants. But I do agree completely across the board on heavy
but the point is that elephants are supposed to be counter to heavy artillery. They are supposed to be able to break through the enemy formations and go straight after that camping artillery ass and force them out of position. Which I actually also watched a recent replay or video of mine where I do exactly that. I have 3 elephants. I think it was Thermopylae. Yeah, it was Thermopylae. I go straight through the middle, straight after artillery. I duel an enemy elephant, and because my elephants were premium, I paid to win the duel because I had a gore ability and the enemy had what? I think he had Stampede instead of that.
He had Tickle 'em ability.
Yeah, I had basically paid to win to win that duel. So I lost 1 elephant in that duel. 2 made it through with almost full HP. And I went after artillery. And artillery does what? Almost kill both of my elephants. Kills 1 actually, I think. And the other one barely made it. And then pushed artillery away, but artillery does what? IKEA set. Pack it up, 10 seconds, runs away. No problem. Deploys somewhere else, kills my elephant. Which it would, but it didn't because he was a stupid player. So I actually get to... Well, he still ran away, but he didn't pick up his artillery. Because he was too late with that. But... Yeah, as elephants are supposed to be counter to artillery, They just slapped a 10%, 10 times multiplier, and it's like, well, not anymore. This time, heavy artillery counters elephants, even though it's supposed to be the other way.
Yeah, memes aside, the reason why artillery should be completely removed is design-wise, it is such a horrible idea. Like, that's why the whole thing is an insult to game designers. Here's why. Whenever you add an element, there are a few factors that you must consider, especially when it comes to balancing. So, I honestly don't even know where to begin. There are just so many. But let's start with my favorite. With artillery, if it is too powerful, or even just a little bit too powerful, it will completely warp the meta around itself. And if it is underpowered, it will have no reason to exist to begin with. So you see where we're going with this. One of the oldest...
I mean, just balance it perfectly, problem solved.
Yeah,
it's not like 1% in either direction.
Mean, just saying, on Steam, I think heavy artillery was balanced. It was really good. It was you had two playstyles with artillery on Steam. You had low risk, low reward, where you essentially just camp behind some sort of a cliff. But if you do that, you're very reliant on what the hell is happening all around you. As in, if your team pushes, if the enemy pushes, and where it pushes, it's your flank or the opposite flank, and you have a limited range. So you essentially rely on the enemy team walking into your range. Which, if you're in a team setup, you can obviously just say, hey, well, we have artillery, they don't, let's camp, right?
Yep.
And then it works.
Are you talking about the rocks?
What?
Even in Steam days, it was all about artillery anyway, because any advantage that it was way too much. Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
It was. I can bring the entire RTK clan and how they won their tournaments simply through artillery. That was their strategy. Anyway. They turned it into a World War One.
Going back to my,
I was wondering.
Going back to my argument, the other play style is high risk, high reward, which is what I was playing, where I would not camp behind cliffs. I would literally just set up my artillery in the front lines, wait for my team obviously to go ahead of me, right? And then always be a threat, no matter where I am, no matter where the enemy is. I always have someone to shoot at. And very often, since I was in open positions, in order to be in range of everything, I would very often get just sniped by enemy cav and die. But high risk, high reward. If I don't get sniped by cav, hey, I deal a lot of damage. Right? I even managed to cap enemy base with artillery twice. And it was back on Steam, where you couldn't just pack it up as an IKEA set. And while they introduced the IKEA set, they combined the two playstyles where you have low risk, high reward all the time. Because you have the low risk of being able to camp behind a cliff, but you don't have the low reward that comes with it because, well, you just pack it up and go somewhere where you can shoot them. Oh, there's an enemy cavalry approaching. Let me pack it up and run very fast back behind a cliff to a safe position. In Steam, you would have to abandon your artillery pieces and hope that the artillery pieces themselves don't get destroyed, because you also couldn't repair them. Which I think the repairability is actually a good introduction. That's one of the good things with the rework. But the ability to pick it up and go as fast as light infantry to whatever the hell you want with your artillery and then redeploy them there, that shit's broken. And that's the main issue with artillery. And I also made a huge table on Reddit detailing what other things are broken with artillery and how to fix each of them. And then you apply maybe half of those fixes and the artillery will be in a good place. But as we go into fundamentals as to why heavy artillery is broken, as you said, Arcleon, it warps the meta around itself. It's just a very, very good comparison to World of Warships and aircraft carriers, where if an aircraft carrier is present in a battle, it plays completely differently as if aircraft carrier isn't present. Same in arena. If artillery is present on the battlefield, your objective suddenly switches from kill enemy forces or cap the base into kill artillery first and then worry about everything else.
Can I interject there, Mr.?
Yeah, I mean, with the new game mode, it's slightly different, so heavy artillery is less relevant, but it's still OP in every other way. Go on, Foxy.
To be honest, I think the main problem with heavy artillery is...
Foxy type.
Yeah.
Give me just a second. Just a second. It's just not fun to play. Like I know no person that could play heavy artillery for like 10 hours a day for 2 weeks. Like no one can do that shit. It's too boring. It's the same.
Excuse me, I was that guy back on Steam when it was arguably much more boring than it is right now. Because back then, if I ran out of targets, I had to push it very, very, very slowly in order to be able to shoot again. Well, in Wargaming version, you can just pack it up and go. But I don't play heavy artillery. I didn't play heavy artillery on Wargaming version. I still don't play it on purpose, just on principle, right? Because I refuse to play that broken shit, and I'll just go play my ranged units or cavalry or whatever.
Preach, folks.
It's just, to be honest, I think it's just not fun to play. Like, it's not engaging at all.
Yep.
All you do is like clicking every 10 seconds with your mouse on the fucking screen, and that's it.
And
Oh yeah, that's another thing, right? Because at least back on Steam, you have obviously, well, you always have either the manual aim, which is you press Alt or whatever. It was Alt back then. I think they changed it to like one of the hotkeys for abilities now. But essentially, you just manual aim, where you just I target this piece of ground and then I shoot there, right? And then you also have the auto aim, which is just right click on a unit. And back on Steam, manual aim was always the way to go, which is obviously harder to pull off, right? But it is, hey, if you're skilled and you know how to aim, you get rewarded for it. If you're not skilled, well, you have access to the right-click aim, but it's going to be worse. In Wargaming version, the manual aim is absolute shit, while the right-click as a sniper rifle, as Astolfo pointed out earlier, where you can snipe elephants, and no matter what kind of direction changes do, you always hit them, because the right-click predicts all the movements. And unless you changed your direction after the rock is fired, the rock is shot, rather, then you get hit because you can avoid it. And also it travels so fast, especially when it's a short distance, that it's very often just humanly impossible to dodge it. And while all the other person, the artillery player, has to do is just right click.
yes,
So it's a huge reward for no skill at all. You just right click.
Yes. So we have elaborated and pretty much dismantled every design decision for artillery to exist, with the exception of one. Does it do?
Oh, I haven't even gotten started, dude. Have you seen my
Yes,
table
exactly.
on Reddit?
That's why I said there are just so many things. But let's talk about them. Like, from game design, you obviously do things for a reason. Does artillery do what it is advertised to do? So let's ask that question. Does it? What is artillery supposed to do? Artillery, at least on the tin, as developers always like to say, it is there, and yes, please hold your laughter, to prevent camping.
I mean, I knew it was coming, so I didn't laugh. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just can't hold my laugh
that's
because
the reasoning.
this is just insulting everybody's intelligence.
Artillery causes camping, right, and fixes it.
Yeah,
Well, what fixes camping is the capture points. And I also, back in the day, suggested dojos. I think dojos would still be a cool addition.
Yep.
But well, now that we have the capture points, it is kind of like a dojo anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got that.
It could be like minor capture points. I would still like to see them, but that's a whole different point. So
we talk about it on a different podcast, so we don't need to dive into it here.
Yes. Absolutely. So going back to artillery, right? In the artillery, does it do what it's supposed to? Does it stop camping? As we have seen from the very first arena tournament, it did not. It warped the entire meta around itself.
The very first arena tournament had artillery banned. Just saying.
The one on the Wargaming one, where you guys, where
that was Wargaming one. That was SUNTZU Invitational one. That was the first one, and heavy artillery was banned. But
No,
the other
there
one,
was-
yes, the other one. I was the guy who was playing heavy artillery in that game.
Yes, and
No,
I
wait,
was the one trying to counter it.
No, wait. Yeah, we fought against each other. You and Legion
Yes.
13 back then. No, I was playing archers probably. Yeah, and Cena was
you were
playing
archers.
artillery. Yeah,
Yes.
But-
so
yeah, because I fucking refused to play it. But yeah, I was the mind behind the strategy, and we was like, okay, we're just gonna camp here behind this cliff, and they will be able to not do anything about it. And that's how it
exactly, and you did that entire tournament, and there's nothing wrong with that. I told organizers this is exactly what is going to happen, and your tournament is going to suck. That's exactly what happened. And
Yeah, I
it's
told
not
him the same,
exactly
just ban
a
heavy artillery.
Nostradamus level. Yeah.
I've told them,
And-
our entire plan before it was like, okay, if they're not gonna ban heavy artillery, we're going to bring heavy artillery and we're going to win.
Exactly.
And I still told the organizers, please ban heavy artillery, even though our main strategy is based around heavy artillery because we know this is like super reliable way to win, which it was. I still told them just ban it because they asked me to be on a committee, right, to provide feedback because they knew I was a huge tournament organizer and competitive player, so they asked for my help. I did provide that help, but they didn't listen. I was like, well,
Exactly.
okay, well, if you're not going to ban it, I have to bring it because otherwise the other guys will bring it and we're fucked.
May
And
I
they did.
interject?
And I still want to
And
win.
they did.
Go on, Astofa.
All right, so I can also I can also give you an example from a tournament. So in the I can't remember what the name of it was. I think it was the SUNTZU Invitational, but I was playing in that tournament, right? And we went to semifinals, right? And in the last match that decided the win or not, my team did not have any artillery, right? And the enemy team had light arty sitting inside of a testudo. So the testudo blocked all of our range trying to hit the light arty. And the light arty was shooting out of the testudo, even though it would pass through its own units and kill its own units doing that. It just no clips through them and could kill units 5 feet in front of them. And, you know, that was one big reason why we ended up losing that game. But also, it was just so not fun to play against. I mean, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, range players take it out, right? Well, you can't because they're under a testudo thing. Okay, so melee players get in there, get her done, right? Well, melee players are also dealing with a melee screen. And then, you know, okay, cav players do it. What do you think the enemy cav's doing? Just standing around looking at the sun or something? Like, it's going to intercept your cavalry.
Start fighting with the infantry, and then they have to anti-studio and then shoot them, but that is kind of maybe too little too late. Because they'll still be standing inside the infantry anyway, so they're gonna soak up the damage. But about artillery, the heavy artillery.
Yes.
Well, what I wanted to touch upon about that very particular final that we fought against each other, it was on marathon. Both games were on marathon.
Yep.
And they went very differently because one side on marathon is clearly better than the other. And we were on the one side, okay, we're just gonna camp behind this cliff and they're gonna, you know, be powerless against us, and that's what happened. But on the other side, the one that has the watchtower near the swamp, right? That same strategy suddenly doesn't work because you don't have vision from that cliff. So we decided to camp in front of the watchtower, which is much more difficult. It is a much more vulnerable position, but we still did it and we still won it. But it was it was much more difficult, and the battle was actually very equal. And if you remember, what happened in the game, that's ridiculous. Heavy artillery was able to kite an elephant.
I remember. Yes, it kited an elephant because they put the entire artillery piece, mind you, at least 500 kilogram artillery piece in their pockets and ran.
Yep, it was literally elephant was chasing the artillery, and artillery, okay, unpack, shoot one rock, pack again, run away. Okay, I'm far enough. Unpack, shoot one rock, pack again.
Yes, I remember that. It was the most frustrating thing in existence, and one of the reasons why it should be banned. Like, we did not even think of it at the time.
I did. I mean, I knew that. I knew that is going to be to happen. I was like, I mean, I was the leader of the team. I was calling the shots, and I told him, "Kite the fucking elephant, you're faster than it."
Yep.
I think another thing is with the respawn system, right? They, like, once you put down the onager, it should stay there, right? You shouldn't respawn with a new one so you can get a new position. You should have to take that position back to use your artillery again. I mean, even if they removed that.
I mean, that is one of the solutions that I actually provided. That when you start the battle, you start packed with artillery packed, right? Then you go wherever the hell you want, because that's also an issue. So maybe someone stole your deployment point, right? And if that happened on Steam, you're fucked because you're either in a very bad spot where you cannot shoot anything from, or you need to spend 1, 2, 3 minutes on going to your position where you can finally start shooting. But 3 minutes in, the battle is already halfway through.
Yeah, but in the current state, you can do both. You can IKEA pack and you get it back when you respawn.
Yeah, which is what I wanted to say. So in the wargaming version, how I proposed it, you just spawn with it packed, but once you deploy it, you cannot pack it back up. In here, same thing, but if you die, you don't have to go there and pick it up again. You just those old artillery pieces disappear, and you spawn with the new ones. You pick one of the spawning positions and just deploy from there. If they have to keep the artillery in the game.
And
that is actually the perfect opportunity, because you always had that argument, or CA always had that argument, that, well, we cannot just delete an entire, artillery, not artillery, an entire tech tree, tech branch from the game, because people have spent a lot of time playing it. Maybe a lot of players, only play heavy artillery, and then we will take away the reason to play. First of all, many players stopped playing because heavy artillery exists. So the artillery kind of literally killed the community. I mean, it wasn't the only reason, right? But it was
also
a huge factor, I would dare say.
Yeah, they would try to give that as a flimsy-ass excuse. I'm sorry, my language, but this is really frustrating. Take a page from Wizards of the Coast. They ban cards that are over $500 because it simply is overplayed. And they do this every few months, and people are fine with it. They're talking about hundreds, if not thousands. They banned Ancestral Recall. Want to know how much Ancestral Recall goes for? $10,000 American dollars each.
Mm-hmm. Very cool, but I cannot relate to it.
So yes, the people, and did it help the meta because it was gone? Yes. More people played it? Yes. Sometimes you just have to make these sacrifices. You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And yes, you can remove a tech tree, just like you removed an entire game because you refused to do any marketing for it.
Yeah, or refuse to remove artillery. But
yes,
there are two choices that CA has here. Either rework heavy artillery, which is, a lot of work, a lot of thinking to do, and a lot of patches and iterations you need to go through, which is the harder way, but arguably it can lead to a better game. Or just do it the easy way and just remove it.
Remove it. Yep, absolutely remove it. And now would be the best time because, well, there isn't really
there is a
anything going on.
Yeah, China and all that stuff. Also, if you just straight up remove it, right? Even if you piss off hardcore artillery players, you're going to piss off a very small percentage of the arena community.
All of them?
Yeah, all two of them, let's say. And you're going to make more than half of the community happy to see it go.
Yes. Also, how do we put this? This is one of the topics, as to little branching off, one of the controversial topics in the forums, right? The people who played artillery, maybe because they aren't doing anything on the battlefield, spend most of their time on the forums. So you would have a vocal minority of people defending artillery, heavy artillery, to the death with these silly arguments that just pushed me and a lot of people away from the forums in general. They'll be like, oh, you're having problems with artillery? You are a noob. I play as cavalry. Which, when you look at his profile, he only plays heavy artillery. Cavalry can always defeat them with a single charge. Well, just play archers, play slingers. Yeah, your heavy artillery piece, which requires only one person to operate, can block all the shots.
Yeah, and heavy artillery truly counters pretty much every single unit type in the game.
Yep.
Even elephants, ranged units, pikes, everything. Heavy artillery just triumphs everything. And the only saving grace it has right now, it is the new game mode, which takes away the significance that artillery has, but it still has a huge fucking significance. It still wrecks everything. That didn't change.
Did any of you guys ever play the Company of Heroes series? Artillery in that series would turn the tide of battle, but it had a huge cooldown, so you could still take back ground and win battles because the dude had a bunch of his stuff, all of his resources sank into artillery, right?
But that's not the same thing because that's only one of the abilities probably, right? Instead of your entire army. And the guy cannot just sit there for 5 minutes and do nothing waiting for his artillery to reload. So
Well, I mean, it's
completely
a team
different thing.
game, right? That's why I was talking about it too, right? So let's say you have 3 people fighting 2 people, and one of the players went arty. Well, that one person could theoretically 1v3 because the arty just wiped out everything that was advancing. But he can't do that next team fight. Like, it's not just always up to just instantly win a team fight, is my point, right? It's it's something that has to be planned out to win a specific team fight that can turn the tide of the game.
Yeah, that was one of the sort of solutions that that was sort of one of the solutions that I provided in my thread, which would be just give artillery like a strain ability, which gives them better range, right? But if it's on cooldown, you have lower range, so you need to be much closer to the fight, and therefore put yourself in a more vulnerable position. Or just wait until the ability is back up, and if you want to bombard enemy from a safe position.
Yeah, but then like people are just gonna like wait.
There is a huge thread, and we can literally just make an entire podcast just about heavy artillery, because trust us, dear viewers and listeners, we just barely scratch the surface when it comes to heavy artillery. So let's not dive too deep into it.